Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo Podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Hello, I am Dr. Richard Day, and this is the Chiro Business Mojo Podcast. Hello, and once again, I am thrilled to be with you and so excited about our guest we have for you today. Dr. Scott Levine was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and has been a practicing chiropractor since 1996 at Vita Health Clinic, where he works with a team of chiropractors, massage therapists, a naturopath, and acupuncturist. Over the course of his career, he's taken over 150 courses, developed his own systems to scan the body, created an industry software to deliver video exercises, and continues to reach out to his community with a message of health. He also focuses on Brain Based Chiropractic, a treatment for ADD, ADHD for both children and adults, utilizing chiropractic, nutrition, and exercises to create balance in the brain. He was most recently honored by an elite coaching company as their International Chiropractor of the Year from 2013 to 2014. Well, let's welcome Dr. Scott Levine.
Hello there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I invite you to jump in and fill in any gaps I may have missed when reading over your bio.
Absolutely. I'm ready for you.
All right. Well, let's take us back to the beginning. Why did you become a chiropractor?
Well, I was thinking about that being your first question, and I realized after looking in hindsight that, and it sounds cliche, but I will say it, that chiropractic chose me. And the reason why I thought about that is because at the beginning I did really have an injury that I ended up seeking a chiropractor for and found it much more educational. But that said, I didn't really understand what chiropractic was when I even started first day of school. So, and that probably becomes your biggest challenge over your lifetime of being a chiropractor, is really how quickly you can understand the power of chiropractic. So, tell you the truth, I do feel like, and people have said it to me, that chiropractic chose me.
Yeah, I've heard that said before, and I know exactly what that means. And for those who are just getting ready to start practice, you might have already experienced that, or maybe you'll figure it out over the course of your career, but it certainly became more clear for me through the course of my career, so I can relate to what you're saying. Well, take us back to when you graduated. We all walk across and we have that proud moment in front of our family and friends, but we don't always end up at the same place. Each of us has a different journey from graduation to our first successes. So paint a picture of what it was like for you when you graduated and the path that ensued after.
So if I was to say that I'm my maybe fourth version of myself, like V4, I would say if we were going back to V1 when I graduated, I came out of Toronto's CMCC. We never heard of the word subluxation. However, did open up a clinic from scratch with no mentors, no senior person, just started opening the door and doing my own front desk. And that was my first version. And what I treated then was just what you a lot of times come out to treat is version 1 was treating more the pain. That's if I saw low back people, I assumed that was what I mainly treated. And then all of a sudden one day you'd show up with a headache person, have a success with headaches, and all of a sudden I was treating headaches. So that was my first version. And then the second version more so came from growing the clinic into more multidisciplinary practice. And at the same time understanding through coaching and through taking courses that the adjustment was more from a vitalistic point of view. And then my third version would be the last, 4 years, and this is my 20th year in practice. The fourth version would be basically really going right to the top, right to the brain, and doing a more brain-based approach. So that would kind of be the timeline that would give you an idea.
Well, we'll stick with the early days just for one more question. I want to ask you, what were the keys to your early success?
I took a ton of courses. In the first couple months, I realized that my best bet is investing back in myself. That for every $1 I spend in education, I'll get 10 back was my thought process. So I took a course almost a month, except for the summer probably, where I would either travel or stay local, and mostly focused early on in technique. Mainly to find out, to become a really good adjuster and also to have more tools in the toolbox. And so referrals tend to create the best patients and is the least expensive. So referrals would happen because I was adjusting and using different techniques that a lot of chiropractors or physical therapists or other modalities the person might have tried before. I was doing better at it and better successful and faster. The other thing would be when I did choose my location, my dad happens to be a real estate agent and did commercial. And so location. I still will say that can be a huge success. And we have parking attached to our building. We're on the subway because we're in a big subway city. So in Toronto, we have the subway that's close by, walking distance. And you have to recognize that chiropractic, unlike dentistry or other doctors, the person will see you repeatedly in a week, never mind in a month. So you want to make it as convenient and easy as possible for patients to get in and get out so that they feel that it's convenient. And the last part would be probably getting an assistant as soon as I could afford an assistant. So the first year I probably did the front desk a lot of on my own, but didn't realize that an assistant would pay for themselves if by just answering phones and collecting money and saving time, but getting an assistant as soon as you can.
Yeah, as a chiropractic entrepreneur, there are so many hats we wear, and it's difficult to wear them all well. And certainly, once you get busy, you figure that out, and I can relate because patient care is at the top. It has to be. But if that starts to fall down because your attention's divided so many ways, absolutely get that other person in there and get them helping out so that you can focus on what it is you do best. Well, let's shift forward in time to the present day, and let's talk about your clinic as it exists today.
So the clinic as it exists today has been in some ways the same clinic for the last 15 or so years. We have 6 body workers like massage therapists, and they do all different types of subdisciplinaries in their area. I have both Japanese and Chinese acupuncturists, a naturopath. Now we've just had another one join, so 2 naturopaths. And so that part of it is the multidisciplinary effect. I also work with 4 other doctors here, so we have 5 chiropractors total that I help mentor and lead, and we work as a team. And so we have all these disciplines in our one clinic, and on top of it, I've created a vision of the clinic. So the vision of the clinic is we're a brain-based clinic. So that includes everything from the type of exams that we do here, including neurofeedback, to the type of testing the naturopath does, which would be more might look at hormones or a lot of digestive issues in any brain. When you're trying to improve brain health, you always want to check digestion. So we have all these team approach, and we have an equal vision where we integrate the approach. We connect with each other when we're handing off patients in the hallway in front of the patient. I always said to my doctors, talk in front of the patient. That's when you get to finally talk like a doctor. When you're talking to your patient, you might talk about the hose and the foot, or you might give analogies that are really simplified so they can understand the concepts. But then you want to also use terminology in front of them that almost just confuses them in a way, but shows them that you do know what you're doing. And so we do this integrative approach where we connect with each other throughout. I could go on more about the clinic. It's kind of unique. Do you want to know about the exams that we do?
Well, I have a million questions. I'm going to try to pare it down.
So I'll let you lead that. That's the thing. I could just keep talking about the way we do the things in our clinic.
Well, a couple of questions before we get into the details of how it runs. Was it something that you visualized early on, having these other disciplines in there, or did it just sort of evolve?
Well, I started on the second floor of this building, and it was a much smaller square footage. It was under 1,000. So we were really just a couple chiropractors and another massage therapist. And then this space happened to come up, and I didn't have a vision. And what I'm kind of saying is I almost had to fill the rooms to make the rent. And so at the beginning, the approach was really, let's get everyone in here and start working and figuring it out. And the vision started coming as almost that turnover occurs. So when you hire someone new in a clinic this size, you're hiring from a different perspective. You have much greater clarity. You have more certainty. I'm a different person. I'm more mature. And therefore, my hires became better. They're also more cohesive to the vision at the time. Versus sometimes the person that's been in your clinic the longest, even though they have there's a lot of benefits to that, they also have, they may have not changed the way you've changed. And that can hold back the total vision of the clinic.
So what's the patient experience like? Does it depend on what's going on with them, or is there a standard, talk to the chiropractor first and then you triage that out to the specialist? Take us through how that works.
Well, if it comes through the chiropractor, the chiropractors will typically push the patient through the system from a perspective of their needs. And because we do neurofeedback, that could be a need. We do blood work, so we would know that the naturopath might need to see them. And so depending, they kind of buy into how many exams they want. So we have 3 main type of exams. One is called brain, the other one is called communication, and the third one is more chemistry. And so sometimes the person really needs all 3 when they come into the clinic, and sometimes they could benefit just with one to start. And that way they don't also get overwhelmed by some of the programs we put together. And then from a patient's experience, we do the initial, then we show them their program. And our programs are typically about a year long. So if you're working at the level of the brain and you want to make a lasting impression, you have to work at all different areas, and therefore it takes usually about a year. And they'll be less frequent at the end, but that's what we're showing people.
So with that model, and more with the internet and social media, people are pre-selecting their chiropractor, knowing full well what's going on in that office and what that experience is going to be like. Do you have the occasional pain patient who comes in and says, well, look, I just slept wrong, and you're talking about a year, and there's this in-depth, several exams, or do people come in really pre-selected, knowing what it's all about and ready to go?
That's a great question. So we'll get both still for sure, because we are chiropractic and we do have massage therapists, and they'll come in sometimes off the street. But if they do see the chiropractor first, we really try to connect them from the pain to the brain, letting them, it's the entire educational system that we start with videos, and we get them understanding that even their pain is from their brain, and it's just a warning signal that there's something wrong upstairs as far as stress. And it's manifesting as pain. And a lot of times they'll still request, just get me out of pain, and we're here for that too.
Well, one of the things you've developed that I haven't heard of before is Brain-Based Chiropractic. What is that?
So that's the URL for our website, and that's kind of something I've looked at working on. So it's a brain-based approach. So that's where we look at the brain through neurofeedback, so looking at the alpha, beta, theta, delta waves. We're looking at, we do everything from heart rate variability. We'll use the subluxation station to measure their core score. I also have a 60,000 sensor plate to measure cerebellum balance to see how well they can stand still when they end up swaying, and we can measure that according to their age. So all these different tests kind of give us a clearer picture, and I really went far and applied kinesiology as far as one of the techniques I learned. So through hundreds of hours of that, I've created my own functional exam. Then learning from many of the greats like Michael Hall allows you to further those functional exams, and then you start learning about the brain more and more. And the way the brain, basically the best way to treat the brain is through the multi-sensory approach. So the proprioception is great from a chiropractic perspective. Other things we use in the clinic to help train the brain is tuning forks, getting auditory coherence that would be tuned to the alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves. We use smell using essential oils to help stimulate brain function. KT tape through kinesthetic, and then we give a lot of exercises as well. These would be like videos that they would do at home.
Well, let's talk. I do have some other questions, but you mentioned the videos at home. What is that all about? I understand that you've developed your own website with all kinds of videos and things.
So another thing was when about 5 years ago, when I was on the internet looking at a better way to send exercises, at the time there was not a great way to send exercises. Many of the companies that were doing it were companies that used to do the paper exercises, and then they just made some like cartoon type videos. And I thought, I know how to exercise. This is not one of my passions. So I filmed about 400 exercises, more functional based, like you won't see a bicep curl in it. You'll see functional and neurological based exercises like cross pattern. there's over 60 exercises specific to balance, because everyone has to be practicing balance. That's one of the fastest ways to activate brain and nervous system function and balance it is through the balance system. And it's also one of the systems that when it goes, it's really dangerous. The person can trip and fall and die, as we know statistically. So the exercises were really videos, and you can send them to your patient. The software tells you if they've done it. I also put into it a messaging system, so it's safe, and therefore when you want to connect with patients, you can do it through the software, and it's mobile friendly, so any patient can watch now their videos and exercises on their phone. And this was a game changer for me, having the software, because not only was I designing it, I was a practitioner actually designing it, like on a day-to-day basis, and giving it to my patients and getting really good feedback made the software really chiropractic, patient-friendly.
Yeah, what a great tool. I find that people do so much better. Their outcomes are better when they're compliant with our care, but that compliant has to fit into their world and be convenient for them. And it sounds like this is a very convenient way to clearly show people what it is they need to do and, again, increase their compliance.
And it's also got some safety features in it. One of the things I filmed, because there was nothing on YouTube, nothing out there, on activities of daily living. So I went around the house and filmed everything from getting out of bed to getting out of the bath to getting off the toilet to putting on your pants, and how to do it biomechanically correct. Because statistically, again, they found that 70% of most injuries occur doing everyday things around the house.
Yeah, and that's the measurement tools that we use to show progress as well. So that's a great idea to incorporate that. And yeah, I haven't seen anything like that before.
Well, I welcome you to take a look at it when you have time.
I definitely will. And we will also be linking to it in our show notes so that people can check it out for themselves. So clearly your clinic is very robust in terms of what it offers, the services it provides. From a time management perspective, in terms of, the patients coming in, what can they expect for that first exam?
The first exam, well, we do break up all the exams in different times. So sometimes when they come in, they might come in 2 or 3 times and only get exams. If they keep being recommended the next exam and they go for it and say, yeah, I want to do that. So the communication exams are number 1, and that's takes about an hour. And half that time is with the CA doing all the scans. And then the other half, 30 minutes, would be with the doctor. So that would be our number 1. The neurofeedback, the doctor's with the patient the whole time, and takes about 35 minutes. And then we do have another exam that's kind of something brand new for us. It's measuring biophotons. And it doesn't take long at all, but it's really interesting technology, and it's really interesting to the patients. And when you print a report, which patients love, it'll print a 20-page report. So it's kind of really patient-friendly, too.
Wow. Well, you've been around a long time, and it sounds like, it's basically referral-based right now. Are there any other techniques you're using, marketing techniques, to find new patients?
Yeah, it's actually completely new for us because we rebranded our entire clinic. So in the last 12 months, we're slowly turning over every single thing from our exterior signage to our business cards to our website. We'll start to flip over again. And so that almost makes you look like a brand new clinic in a way. So we definitely have the benefit of referrals, but on top of it, we're doing a lot of we do shows. So we do big exhibitor shows. We do probably 6 to 8 of those a year, where we set up our like a full professional looking booth to introduce people to what we do and how we're different. And then we do farmers markets, which are great. Like farmers markets is something I would say that's the cheapest, most beneficial marketing place, because farmers markets are community based, really close by. People shop at farmers markets are already looking for that organic kind of natural thing. You've already got your right demographic. You're not expected to be there. So instead of being at a show with a ton of other type of health professionals, including chiropractors, all of a sudden they're looking at their vegetables, they look up and they see some person that's talking to them about chiropractic and the benefits of a natural, healthy way to, keep your health strong. So I found farmers markets were a great addition. And other than that, we every so often someone does something like you're doing where they want to connect with us because we're doing things that are different.
So I want to drill down on what it is you're doing at the booth in the farmer's market. Are you simply talking to folks, or are you using a subluxation station? What are you doing in the brief amount of time as people are, between the vegetables?
Basically, I have a table there, and then I use postcards as our marketing material. I've moved away from brochures. There's some really low-cost ways to do full-color postcards, and it makes you work hard at simplifying your message, because you can't write a lot, and you want to have photos and things like that. In a postcard, you can't have it so tiny they can't read it. So it just really helped actually get our message down to what we do. And so then it is simple, our line a lot of times is, have you ever had your brain checked? And they always say no. If you were subluxation based, have you ever had your nervous system checked? Have you ever? And they'll say no. And we expect the no, and we want the no, because then we can go and tell them, and then the question a lot of times is, well, what would you say is the most important organ in the body? And a lot of times people will say heart. However, scientifically, we all know it's the brain, the nervous system. And therefore, do you get regular dental? Do you get regular eyes? And then you bring them, so you've told them you've had them tell you what the most important organ is, and it's the brain and nervous system. And then they tell you that they've never had it checked, and that they get all these other things from dental and things with yearly checkups. And you say, would you be interested in a quick little screen? And when we do a screening, we lie them on the table and we do a quick little functional muscle exam, because you can do it in about 10 seconds and show them that there's weakness on one side of the body in certain areas. And that imbalance over time causes problems.
I really like what you're saying there, because it's a low-cost way of demonstrating things to the patient that doesn't require any expensive extra, equipment or anything like that. But like you said, you can make such a powerful message in a short period of time. So,
and I agree with you. And just as far as low tech, I would say the other piece of equipment we used to use, and we just don't use it now, are the SAMs, the postural scales. Those have been also really great ways to quickly communicate posture. The thing that happens is then you have to recognize that you're now going to treat posture, which is great, but it wasn't what we wanted to treat anymore. We wanted to treat brain and nervous system, and function.
So, yeah, I guess practitioners define your practice, or if you've already done that, make sure whatever you're doing in a screening is going to fit with that objective and your approach. Well, what about public speaking? Do you do any talks or anything like that?
I do. It is my favorite thing to do. Last week, I was fortunate enough to be called down to the government ministry and talked in front of 100 people, which would be a larger audience that I would do usually. And what I would say is I used to do PowerPoints, lots of them, prepare well, and now that I've done probably 15 different talks many times over, I don't need any PowerPoints, and I can just pull it all together through interaction and workshop. And I find talks are your really best way. You're getting in front of a lot of people at once, so becoming good at them and understanding what makes a good talk is really important.
Well, in a nutshell, maybe give us 2 or 3 bullet points of what does make a good talk.
Oh, I would say your intro and your exit are really important parts. And I even teach my doctors to do the exact same pretty well intro for the first 5 minutes and the same exit for the last 5 minutes. And then what you fill it is based on your audience and what you were asked to give. And the intro, I would say one of my favorite lines is I look at everyone, I say, show of hands here, everyone that thinks that stretching daily would be beneficial to them. And so you get 100% of the room putting their hands in the air. And then I say, okay, now show of hands of how many of you stretch daily. And hands drop and there's 5 people. And I said, great. So if all I do is give you tips on how to lead a better life, a healthier life, 5 of you will do them. The other 95% of the room will continue to take those tips, but knowing that they should be doing them, will continue to do the same thing they've done every day. And so what my talk's really about is inspiring you to want to take action. And that's what I do. The first 20 minutes of a 30-minute talk will be all about inspiration. And that inspiration could be everything from the reasons you need to do it and the reasons why you need to avoid it, and also keeping the talk to maybe 3 points when I used to do talks, and if I did like 8 points, I found people retained only 3 anyway. So why give them 8 when you can then do 3 and do them really well?
So yeah, that leads me into this. How long are your talks?
30 minutes, 45, and an hour. And one time I did a workshop for 2.5 hours. And those, I can customize any one talk for any of those times. That said, probably optimal is about 30 minutes.
Well, one of the things that I saw that you do that it's a little different that I hadn't heard of before is the Walk with Your Doc program. What is that all about, and how do you do that?
So about a year ago, I had been doing these lunch and learns in nice weather. So you go into the corporation and you sit down and everyone eats their lunch. And I was like, why aren't I getting people to walk outside and doing the exact same thing and do it every single week and have them come to me? So I created this Walk with Your Doc. We even put a website, walkwithyourdoc.org, and created an area where people could then register online, meet us right in front of the clinic, kind of like a running room. And then we go for a walk in nature, usually lasting about an hour. And in that time, I'll bring up a topic each time. And I prepare at the beginning of the summer, like 40 different topics. It's really quick and easy. You just pick then which topic you wanted to talk that day. Most people will bring a friend when they go to a walking thing. They don't usually do it alone, so you end up meeting other people. And whenever we're above 10 people, we'll bring a second doc or a second person so that we can keep the group kind of tight. And then also on top of it, I teach a 20-minute, real quick workshop on teaching you how to walk. And that was probably our biggest corporate seller last year, and will continue, is teaching people how to walk properly. And that's a real easy opener. I just start out and open up the talk and say, how many of you have been taught how to walk? And nobody has. We all haven't. And say, well, today's about teaching you how to walk because it'll be the thing you do the most repetition in your life that will create degeneration and knee pain on one side only, degeneration and low back pain on one side only. And this is all because of the improper balanced gait. And then I go through exercises, and there's 3 main exercises that help bring them back. And it's been amazing. I've had people 2 weeks later, patients say their knee pain's gone because they're now doing the exercises to help balance their gait.
So for these sorts of events, the speaking engagements and the walking, do you have a marketing person or a CA that schedules these in your office, or do you do them?
It's a combination of both, but I do have a CA that does have wear that hat in our clinic. So we have 4 CAs, and one of those 4 is the office manager.
So as you know, this is the Chiro Business Mojo podcast, and we are all about providing actionable content for our listeners to help make their practice/business better. So let's break it down. What is your actionable advice, something someone can do tomorrow? Let's break it down for the new doc, and then maybe your advice for the seasoned doc who's looking to get more out of their practice.
Well, I would probably say that if you were repeating what I did, if that was something that interests you, and that's what I know best, it's taking lots of courses as a new doc. And even as an old doc, in this month alone, I've taken 2 courses. One of them was 5 days long, and one of them was 3 days. And in one of the courses, I was the only chiropractor, and the other 25 people were psychotherapists and psychiatrists. So I even step outside of my own teachers and mentors from chiropractic perspective and learn from others, because there's so many great modalities out there that we're able to use as chiropractors and can really benefit patients. So taking lots of courses would be one thing for both parties forever. But early on is becoming focused. I focused on one type of course. I focused on AK for me, and applied kinesiology was really interesting and different, and it was a lot of work. And so I just kept focusing on it probably for like 10 years, taking those techniques. So finding something you love in chiropractic. It might even be a demographic. It might be a technique, and then becoming a master of it. Taking as many courses as you can, reading, listening to podcasts, just learning within it. And then when you are a master, that's when that's when you start your next journey on the next type of focus. And that way you become really good at one, and then you become really good at two, and over time you'll be really good at many. And I would say that's the most important. And then another thing is the coaching. So I had a coach for many years, and then I take a break, and then I get a coach again, and then I take a break. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to take a break ever. It just, that's what happened for me. And I think having a coach or a mentor that you work with that can teach you, and if you don't have a coach, then even finding a mentor where you're working with, let's say, someone more progressive, that they put the time in. And that's one thing I would say. One of the things I put is I invest a lot of time in my team. So on average, we do 4 hours worth of meetings every single week. And that includes everything from communication to technique to working with the CAs. So investing in your team is really important. That would probably be for the older long-term coach that has a team. A newer coach, doc. Newer doc, I would probably say learning the importance of your CA early on is huge. I think that I've seen it because I've had enough doctors come through my clinic that one of the things that they're not taught or don't get at the beginning is the importance and respect that a CA should be given, and they can totally make your practice. They are the front of the team, investing in their future, investing in their how much they're appreciated, how much they want to be there is huge. And you want to learn that as soon as possible, and just take my word for it, because I've seen doctors in my own clinic. I had to connect with the CA and say, listen, just give him another chance, because he was being rude or whatever. And here I am working for the doctor, and then teaching the doctor that you got to really respect them. They're amazing. They can make or break your practice. So understanding that importance. For an experienced doctor, one of the things that I think a lot of doctors will become is stuck. They're doing almost like they're repeating the first day 100 times over. They have not changed. They have not changed anything on the walls. When I say we rebrand all the way through. That I'm unique that way. That said, if you're stuck, find again a focus, find a passion within what you do, or find something new. And it takes time. So don't think it happens overnight. I started this journey of the brain 4 years ago, and that was because I took a course in ADD and ADHD. And it just showed me how balancing the brain can change things, and then started going from there. And lastly, you got to take vacations. I take many, and I enjoy them. And that is the best time to recharge, and you definitely need to recharge, because we're with people all day, and we're very much in the service industry, which means at the end of the day, you're giving. So does that help?
Yeah, great advice. Let's step back from the specific advice of success in chiropractic to the bigger picture of success in life. And you've obviously had a lot of success in your life. We learn so much from our successes, but we can learn even more from our setbacks. So can you describe for us something in your life, an obstacle you've overcome, what it was and how you dealt with it, and the lessons you learned?
I think the biggest overcoming that I had to do was being a chiropractor. I coming out of school, I didn't expect that, I'm doing this 20 years, and I feel like I worked just as hard as day one or harder in communication, in marketing, in all the things I did the first day to try to build a practice. So, and I think it becomes the fact that you get told that, I can remember so many times when certain movies have come out, and this is the year I'd be at Parker. This is the year it's going to be huge for us. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen. This is it. And it doesn't change. People's perception of chiropractic, they don't understand it. And that's partially because many of the chiropractors telling the story don't understand it and the greatness of it. But that said, at the end of the day, I'm up against sometimes what we'd call negative branding. And negative branding means a lot of times people come with a negative perception of what we do, a misunderstanding. So if you were talking about what the biggest challenge is, it was overcoming who I was and knowing that this is the way it is. And if you're asking, the second part was, how did I overcome it? I think it was accepting that having full acceptance that this is the life of a chiropractor. I've stepped up to the point where I've signed up for the fact that I'm going to be an educator, that this is part of being a chiropractor, is being an educator, and that means educating the public. I'm in service, which means one of the things I had to accept that if something's embarrassing or feels uncomfortable inside to do it, I have to get out of the way of myself so that I can be in service, which means tell the story in places that may feel uncomfortable. So it's those overcomings that help, that were challenging at times.
Who are your personal heroes?
Well, I'd go with who's influencing the most right now, and that would be Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, I'm kind of gung-ho right now because I've done recently the basic course a few months ago, then I did his advanced course, and I've read his books, and I've watched his YouTube videos, and I've helped influence some other patients already that have now taken his courses, and one of them came in today actually and said, thank you for introducing me to him. And what I'd say is what he's done for me is he's taught me the meaning behind meditation versus I couldn't get into meditation. I knew it would be good for me, but I just couldn't do it. Every time I started, I ended up stopping. And he was the first person that teaches quantum physics, energy, and how meditation can be used to help not only heal your body, but possibly manifest the life that you want through this quantum physics and meditation. And so his book, You Are the Placebo, great book. Lots of science in it. It's really easy to understand, and it's a great book to connect you with.
Well, you mentioned meditation. Are there any other habits or rituals or affirmations you do every day to help you live the life of your dreams?
My biggest like raw thing is drinking water. I drink probably 5 liters easily of water a day. I start the day off with ginger and lemon in my water. I'll teach any course I teach, I talk about water, and I'm a huge advocate for it, mainly because anytime I look at my new patients where they had to answer how many glasses of water do you drink a day, 1 out of 20 drinks the right amount. 19 are drinking way too low. And a book got me on this. It was called Your Body's Cries for Water. And it's written by an MD, and I think it's in its 2nd edition. And it talks about what everyone thinks is just normal physiological aging, like arthritis or digestive problems or memory problems. And it's really living a day-to-day chronic dehydration. And if you're not drinking enough water, I can tell you, you're probably getting tired by 3 or 4 o'clock and yawning and heading to get a coffee, which is adrenals and more of a diuretic. And if you just drink a liter of water, you'll probably stop yawning if you have more energy, because 1 to 2% of dehydration will cause a foggy brain and tiredness.
Well, you've mentioned a couple of books in the podcast so far, so we will definitely link to those in our show notes. Do you have any other reading recommendations for our listeners?
I love Norman Deutsch. He's The Brain That Heals Itself, and he basically teaches you in his book how the brain's way of healing. He teaches you in his book basically how the brain heals. And one of the things I loved about it, not only is he really laid it out nicely, and he's just recently did a Nature of Things with David Suzuki, so you can catch him probably on video as well. But he gives you all the ways, the science from the things that people are doing, and it comes down to using a multi-sensory approach. The brain heals through its senses. And so that would be the summary, that if you're looking to get into brain-based, you have to figure out how you're going to stimulate different senses and the way you're going to stimulate it.
What is the best business advice you've ever received?
I think the constant, never-ending learning. Just don't stop. The school just got you started. It gave you a ticket to now go to take any courses you want and be able to apply that day, the next day, into your practice on patients and see the changes you can make just by the new course you've taken. Invest in your team. Really invest in your team. They will be so happy, and that includes from taking them to, if you go on a coaching seminar, to just even I buy gift cards, and you buy the coffee or David's teas and buy them in $10 and buy like $100 worth. Have 10 of them back there, and I tell you, I give them out all the time. And they're so simple and so easy. And if you don't buy them, you won't get them. I can tell you that also happens. So spending a little money on just little gift cards that you can give and say thank you. So investing in your team. And that includes a good bookkeeper. I've had my bookkeeper from the beginning. She's a shark. She's amazing. And she's saved us tons of money. And I use her for advising whenever I'm calling, as far as like if I'm going to do a raise in a salary, to what our numbers are. And so having a really good bookkeeper can make a huge difference on the business side.
Absolutely. I think that doesn't get said enough. But I mean, before we make any major purchase, be it personal or professional, we always consult our accountant on the best way to really structure that to make it, to decrease our tax load, our tax burden, and make smart decisions. And you don't want to leave too much money on the table just through not knowing. So absolutely get the right team around yourself.
I agree. And one thing to add to that, you said accountant, which we have an amazing accountant. It is almost the bookkeeper that has the day-to-day pulse on the practice. And so because they're also lower cost than an accountant, and they can sometimes help on certain day-to-day operations.
Well, thanks so much for allowing us to pick your brain today. What's the best way for people to connect with you and find out more about you and your services and the various things that you provide?
Well, if you're able to provide links, you have my email. I'd be happy to provide. It's drscottlevine, SCOTTLEVINE, at Vita, VITA, healthclinic.com. And we'll provide the websites and any of the books that you want me to recommend.
All right. Well, we will definitely link to that in our show notes page when this episode goes live. Dr. Scott Levine, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all the valuable information you did with our listeners.
Much pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.